You guys ready? Welcome to the May 18th, 2017 Downtown Design Review Committee meeting. First order of business is roll call.
Betsy Brunstetter.
Present.
Gigi Faulkner.
Present.
Charles Ainsworth.
Present.
Corey Bates.
Present.
Nathaniel Harding. Connie Scothorn. And Danielle Theriault. You have a quorum.
Great. First order, second order is approval of minutes. Do we have a motion and a second on the approval of the April 20th meeting minutes?
Move to approve.
That was a Bates and Theriault motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We have no cases withdrawn that we know of right now. Anybody in the audience want to withdraw your case? No? Okay, good. We have no continuance request unless there is someone out there. Nope? Okay. We have two items on the consent docket. Does anyone have any issues with the items on the consent docket? Do we have a motion on the consent docket?
Move to approve the consent docket.
That's a Bates-Theriault motion. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion passed. The consent docket passed. Items for individual consideration. The first item is 229 Northwest 9th Street. Is the applicant present?
Yes, and I'll introduce it, Betsy.
Okay.
So this is an existing building at Northwest 9th and North Harvey. It's you might know it as the Fuentes Prosthetics building. There's a big sign. It's one of the more unusual buildings in the city because it's a original building from the 20s with an addition from the 60s, and they couldn't be more different from each other. But the owner is trying to redevelop that site. To do that, they're creating a access from the street to the basement where there was previously no access, and then they are adding some more openings and some entry elements to try to make it more inviting. And all this is in the staff report. The main issue, so to speak, that staff saw was the sidewalks. And so this is a picture of the existing building. Work has already started without permits, so that's why we were able to capture some of these in time. But Paula, or if you scroll down to the streetscape, yeah, there's because when the new openings were created to access the basement level, it created two slightly different levels of sidewalk. And to make it safer, the applicant added this guardrail, but all of the district guidelines about pedestrian safety and comfort, staff believes, are really interrupted by this, that the sidewalk and the pedestrian are supposed to have a very strong relationship to the building in terms of access, and we're supposed to have, this is downtown, we're supposed to have as wide and clear of a path as possible, and the handrail interrupts it.
What is the new width of the sidewalk?
The new clear width of each side of the sidewalk. One side, the curb side, is about 48 inches, and the width of the path against the building varies from 49 inches to about 60 inches.
Okay, so we need at least 60 inches on the main sidewalk for the pedestrian path of travel.
Yes.
Okay.
And I understand, the difficulties about accommodating the grade difference. The difference right now is only 6 or 8 inches. It's not that great. I think it could be made up in a different way. But anyway, that was the issue that staff saw. The guidelines overall advocate for keeping existing buildings, rehabilitating them appropriately, and activating the ground floors. Anything that accomplishes those things is square in the intent of the guidelines.
So, applicant, could you come forward, state your name, write it on the piece of paper in front of you, and
Okay, Brandon LaFuente, Elevate Holdings and Trust, 229 Northwest 9th. You have any? The actual width of the sidewalk, including the curb, is 56.5 inches. So we're just shy of the 60 that is required, and we're open to redesigning that if we need to.
so ADA standards require a 60-inch sidewalk, and I don't think that includes the curb.
Okay.
So that counting the curb creates a hazard for someone in a wheelchair.
Okay.
So I was going to say, to his point, our staff recommendation was to give him and his design team more time on the sidewalks, but to approve the new veneer and the new entrance elements on the building.
Okay. Do you want to present that, or do you feel like your drawings do all they need to do?
Well, I think that the drawings do speak for themselves. If, let's see, I mean, the conceptual drawing, I don't know if it's up there or not, but if we can go to that, you can see kind of what we're trying to do or trying to establish with this. We're trying to make it mixed use. We've got some interest of possibly some restaurants that want to go into that area, and we just haven't really decided exactly what we're going to do with it yet.
Okay, any questions?
I have a couple questions. Starting off, is the extent of the new work limited to just the west side of the building?
Yes, at this point.
Okay, because that's the stone veneer base does wrap around to the south. And was the canopy replaced on the south portion of the building?
No.
No, that was there, okay.
Yeah, that was there. All we did was paint it.
Okay, so the west and the south, and actually that stone does wrap around to the
Even the east a little bit, yeah.
So just from a procedural standpoint, I would have liked to have seen drawings showing that and with notation on them, just so we know the full scope of what's going on.
Sure.
The interior space, is that being renovated?
Right now, it's just basement. It doesn't even have a floor in there yet. So we're in the process of, once we get approval, we'll go back and pour a slab in there, and then we're going to open up the walls for access to some of the other rooms that are down in the basement. And so yes, it is.
So the stairs and the ramps that are shown would be new construction?
Yes.
With that being said, would it be possible to add an additional stair to those runs to elevate the threshold of the opening from the exterior to
make it
avoid
sidewalk
the difference in elevation in the sidewalk?
It would, but the height of those doors there, it's to get proper height. That's why we decided to go down lower grade. I mean, without getting into the existing structure more, I think that and the level inside, I think that it probably wouldn't be. I wouldn't be able to do that, but I mean, I can look at it.
Okay. And then just if you could speak to kind of the reasoning or intent behind adding the stone veneer and the ephes?
Well, the original veneer that was on there is a aggregate, and it was falling apart and looked horrible. If you can see you can see from that picture right there. Entire panels of it had fallen off. So we we wanted to just kind of dress it up a little bit, dress the building up a little bit. So that's why we added that veneer.
I guess, what was the reason to add the stone veneer that you did versus saying coming back and either repairing what's there or replacing with new that matched what was previously there?
I had talked to a few different contractors about doing a kind of like a stucco to cover it, and we ended up going with this because of price and basically we thought it was the best looking for what we needed.
I have a question. So the two new entrances, storefront entrances on the west side are going to be for other businesses, front doors for other businesses or another business?
That's correct.
And then is your front door for your business on 9th Street?
It
On the
is.
corner,
Yes.
on that south?
That's correct.
East corner? Okay. Am I correct, Lisa, you can tell me this, should the rock veneer have been brought to us before it was installed as a design element?
Yes, everything that's been done should have come before it was done.
And so we're to consider that element as if it were not done, as if it's a new
Retroactive.
application and is not done. Okay. I have concerns about the sidewalk. I think that's a most important pedestrian sidewalk in that entire area that's developing and will continue to develop, I think, in very big ways. And secondarily, had the rock veneer come to us, I would not have been in favor of the rock veneer on that building. I find it to be incongruous with the look of that building, and I would love to hear my colleagues' opinions on that.
The structure is two distinct buildings, I mean, and we didn't do that. I mean, we're just trying to put elements together to kind of tie it all together. I mean, that's the goal in the end. I don't have that in my drawings and all that stuff, but, you know, that's 5-10 years down the road with me handling everything.
I agree that they're two distinct buildings.
You know.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you're planning to put EFS on a huge part of this building?
No, the stonework, no, I'm not, I was going to continue it along the bottom of the building later.
The stonework?
If I needed to, yeah.
But above the stonework on the brick, you're putting a covering on that?
Yes, I was thinking of putting a,
Shown on the drawings. but not-
Okay, if you look at the image on the screen now, so there's the, starting on the right-hand side, there's the rock veneer, which has been added. The tan part above it is the existing brick with nothing done to it. And the white portion above that is existing veneer panel that we're not proposing to do anything to
Not at this time.
Okay, so
So
the,
the EFS is just the entrance
Right.
surrounds.
And
okay.
Right there.
It's shown in a kind of a funny way where you're showing, even though the rock actually sticks out further than the brick above it, it looks like you're adding a surface above it.
no, we're not.
Okay, so that's just brick. It's
Right.
just being depicted
Right.
incorrectly.
Sorry.
And why add the EFS onto the masonry building?
Well, we were trying to kind of break up the lines of the structure. So instead of having it look like it's just two distinct buildings, we're trying to put some kind of conceptual design into it so that it looks like it's kind of more modern. Like some of the apartment buildings downtown have wood structures and all this stuff kind of to break up the single design style of some of the buildings. So that's kind of what we were going for with that.
You know, I'm wondering if instead of just taking the sidewalk back to rework, I'd like to look at you taking everything back, and you've got a great building that you're working with. I mean, it's a beautiful building, and it's not necessary to add too much to it other than your entries.
Sure.
I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, so My comments as a whole are, one, the sidewalk. I do think there's certainly a solution there that does not include a guardrail that divides the sidewalks. I think it's given the demo of that planter and the widening of the space between the building and the street, you opened up an opportunity to put in a landscape zone and really enhance the street experience. In addition to that, getting that guardrail down and getting the sidewalk to just meet your commercial entrances will make public access into those tenants much more easier and appealing. I do not believe the ephes nor the stone veneer work with the existing character of each of the buildings or each character of the two buildings. The canopies and the storefront entrances, I would argue, are ephes to highlight the entrances into those storefronts and really just let the brick be the brick. The ephes feels very tacked on to something that can be, that's something, the brick veneer that's nice already. And then the stone veneer, just stylistically, it does not work with the mid-century feel of that side of the building. As Gigi said, I would not, it doesn't work stylistically.
Any other comments?
I guess I echo those comments. I think the canopies probably do enough to identify the new entrances that you're trying to give an identity to. So I think the canopies would probably be okay. The ephes surrounds don't seem necessary, actually, and they seem to detract from the existing building. One last comment I had about that railing. Have you had anyone look at that from a safety perspective in terms of getting in and out of those entries to the building?
We have not.
So I may want to look at that from, reducing the width to which someone can exit those those new-built spaces.
Sure.
The stone, I guess I agree on. I agree if on the look of the stone, it's already in, so it always puts us in a position of trying to debate if it's worth the burden of having a new material put in place. Although I know we're supposed to not review it, or we're supposed to review it as if it isn't in place, but it always puts us in a tough spot. Had it been brand new and it wasn't existing, we probably would say there's many other materials that would look just fine as a replacement, excluding this one. So I'm not sure if I probably would tend to let it go, to be honest, since it's already in. But I would have liked to see other options as a replacement.
Any other comments?
I guess my question is, if we require the stone to be taken off, and I agree it's not very attractive. What would that, if the existing condition before that was put on was crumbling or in bad deteriorating condition, what would the architects on this panel suggest it be replaced with?
There's all kinds of fun options. I mean,
That's my question.
You could use
But certainly ephes
that
is
ironwood
ephes is
in a
not one of
paneling,
them, right?
something that's really pleasing to the pedestrian, and maybe add its interest to the side of that building.
Yeah, I'd say there's plenty of options within the palette of the character of that building. One thing I would look at is whatever is done to the base be done above the existing brick as well, below the canopy, so that there's a consistency of, there's the aggregate panel at the top and the bottom. If you're going to do something to replace that aggregate panel, be consistent across the whole building.
Yeah, that would be nice, but is the panel below the canopy needing replacement?
It probably does need
Okay, I mean, if
replacement,
it does
and that's
need
in the works down the line. I mean, I don't have any plans for that at this moment, but that's what I want to do, is to fix it up. I mean, it's got rust stains and stuff from that awning or from that canopy, so it's not very attractive.
Yeah. I think I would be okay if it was different materials, if it needed to be from a feasibility of adding some type of, I mean, I would assume something on the base would be a masonry material, durable, and I don't know if it would be very easy to add that up above or not, and if it, for you. So I would be okay with 2 different materials, but yeah, a different type of masonry product maybe on the base would have been
Okay.
good.
Okay. Do you have any, are there any comments from the gallery? Okay. Would you be willing to take a month's continuance?
Sure.
So we could hear this again next month and would that give you time to, well, actually,
Yeah, we had suggested July 20th because materials would be due a week from today.
okay.
Or
What's your thought on that?
If that's fine with me.
July 20th?
yeah.
Brandon, I mean, can you get revisions
In a week?
Well, in a month is when we would need them for July.
Yeah, probably. I'll try. I mean, let's,
We appreciate you.
I always ask this question because once it gets continued, then we kind of have to always address
Right.
it.
We have to,
We have to keep doing
Right.
something about
I'll
it.
do my best to get it to you.
Thank you.
okay.
Sure.
So the materials would be due by, what's the date?
The 16th, June 16th?
June 16th? Well, you get another week after that, right? Okay, so the applicant is willing to continue the item. Do we have a motion and a second on that?
I move to continue to the July meeting.
Second.
Okay, that was a Faulkner-Ainsworth motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The application is continued. Thank you very much for working with us. The next application is 1000 North Broadway Avenue. Is the applicant present?
Yeah, this is the Community Foundation addition that was reviewed and approved at the December meeting. Since then, they've gone to bid, and because of schedule and cost, need to look at a different material in place of the terracotta. So they're proposing a GFRC panel that they could get in time that would look exactly the same.
Good morning to the chair, committee members. Tony Blatt with Hornbeak Blatt Architects for the applicant. When we had initially done our presentation, we had metal on this portion of the building, and in coordinating with DDRC and with Automobile Alley and the owner and the contractor, we looked at some different material options, and we came back with terracotta as a potential solution, something that would kind of dovetail with the rest of the masonry veneer and be complementary but not identical for this area that is cantilevered off of the building. When we discussed this with the different material vendors and potential masons in town who would be doing the installation, we were given a budget and a time frame. And the bigger shock whenever we got our bids in was a 6-week lead on shop drawings and a 30-week lead on fabrication and delivery, and then we still had to install it. So a 36-week or 9-month window to get this on site. Plus the fact that it was not within the budget we had originally anticipated, we started looking for options. We engaged the mason, who was the apparent low and preferred bidder, so that he would be engaged in that process and that discussion, and we started talking about the option of GRFC. And I met with Advanced Masonry and talked to them about some projects that they have done in the past and some applications that they have used downtown and their ability to perform this locally and get it installed within our original budget and time frame, and keeping the same look, the same pattern and delineation lines that we show on the facade. We plan to keep those in their same location. And with that, we brought it back to Lisa to discuss what our options were, and then are bringing this back to you today for your comments.
The material meets the guidelines. We brought it back to committee because the committee had made a particular point about discussing the material on the rear side. Otherwise, everything about it is administratively approved.
I'll just make a comment. Because this is on the backside, I think it's probably fine. But it gives us another opportunity to look at the building again. I mean, just for future reference, I would prefer not to have as many materials on a building like this, but I think I'm okay with this change. Any other comments? No other comments? Any comments from the audience? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the application on the basis that it complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C of the staff report.
Second.
Bates? Faulkner? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I know it's going to be an exciting building. And you started a tidal wave of construction on Broadway. Yeah, well, just this building. Next item is 321 Northwest 8th Street. Is the applicant present?
Good morning, Chair and the whole committee. My name is Jose Rodriguez. I'm the architectural designer representing my client, Matt Saybacker. And the item at hand basically is a roof patio for the outdoor space for the Tamashi Noodle House restaurant on 8th Street. And I believe Lisa had some pictures there to show. And what we're trying to accomplish is basically put an outdoor seating area. And you can see in the 3D modeling there that we originally had, we went up all the way to the sidewalk edge on the side of the restaurant. There's a gravel area where the seating would be placed, basically. And so initially we wanted to basically go all the way and maximize the seating area and the exposure to the public. Lisa indicated that that might be an issue, and they suggested, recommended that we, because of potential and future modifications to the public sidewalk, that we might have to bring it back, step it back 5 feet, which we indicated already in the revised drawings. And that's, and I guess the other comment that Lisa had was on the architectural or the design side of things, to be able to have the right specifications for the patio, corrugated metal, aesthetically. I know that there's a catty corner from us. There's an Elemental Cafe, which they have what we're trying to do is kind of mimic that same roof structure for the outdoor. And that's pretty much it.
Any questions from the committee?
Any comments from the staff?
Just to follow up and to recap in staff report, the guidelines talk about additions to existing buildings, that they need to enhance the existing building, that any construction needs to support a strong pedestrian-to-building relationship, which I believe something this big and prominent. Well, Laura, if you go back to the floor plan, there's and this canopy awning pergola. It's almost the size of the building. But I mean, it may create a great active space that really animates the sidewalk. It could also, significantly interrupt the relationship day to day, because the patio will be seasonally. Back to Elemental, we talked, Jose and I, several occasions, that I believe the design as proposed is just too utilitarian. And we really studied together what made Elemental different. One, Elemental is significantly smaller. Two, its framing, it has significantly less framing. It's done with smaller members in a more thoughtful way. And these are, if you look at the member sizes, these are, again, because this is relatively large structure, it's big members, it's big columns, it's big beams. Elemental was able to get most of their columns toward the back and to get fewer of them. So not to compare, but just as precedent when we're looking at, what's the difference between them.
And if I may add, we did talk to Lisa, and we are going to be basically moving the structure. The Elemental has all their framing above and then they have the underside be the aesthetically pleasing material, and that's what we intend to do. So we're going to switch it to where we show the structure above, and then on the underside, it'll be the more aesthetically pleasing material. So that's, and then basically frame on the edges, on the perimeter, that way it doesn't show the structure.
But do you have a revised framing plan?
No,
That's what
no.
the committee needs to see to make a
Right,
decision.
right. Yeah, but that, and we will get that, and that's the intent to do that.
So do we need to continue it to July so you can provide that?
It's your recommendation.
I'll leave it to the committee.
I have one question. Are you aware that the current design will obstruct visibility of the sign for the restaurant?
No, I don't, I mean, there's plenty of structures, exterior structures like that are similar, that it's really up to, the client or the owner or the architect's taste on what the view or how you want to view this design. So it's really the style that is at play here.
I'm speaking of the existing sign for
The
the
sign.
restaurant.
The signage,
Yes, the signage that's on the building right now.
The rooftop sign
That
you won't
this,
see.
this design for this canopy will obstruct view.
No,
your
it
view.
won't.
Could we go back to the slide that has the 9 images on it? If you look top center,
Yeah.
you can start to see how the canopy obstructs your view of that sign.
sure.
And actually, I went out there this morning, stood on the sidewalk, stood across the street on the sidewalk, and looked at those view angles. And I just want the owner to know that the current design of this canopy will obstruct the view of that sign from the streetscape.
So one of the things you might look at when you're making some adjustments to the design is a placement of that sign.
So would you be recommending that we make that sign go higher?
No.
No, I'm not making any recommendations.
Okay.
I just want everybody, including the owner, to know that the current design of the canopy will obstruct the view of that sign. And I'd say that in relation to the previous design of the canopy that was submitted to the committee
Sure.
Months ago, that was more of an open, kind of almost timber frame
Right.
structure, although metal, but open.
It's
in a-
exposed.
in a way that the sign, the existing sign of the building, could still be seen from the sidewalk.
What-
I just want...
Sure.
I think, to say it a different way, if your goal is to create a, attractive place where everyone's going to know where you are and come, to
Right.
think through, what they're actually going to experience. There's a code limit to how tall that sign can be. So raising it is probably...
Well, I mean, one of the other ideas that we kicked around was because the roof was going to be extended all the way to the sidewalk, and to add or modify the signage to be at that point where you are walking along that sidewalk or driving, and it's in the foreground, basically, for the signage on the actual patio roof. So that's one thought that we had.
Well, this gives you an opportunity to look at that and come up with a different placement if that's what you feel like is necessary. So you would agree to continue this to the July meeting, is that right?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify. The committee, does the applicant need to address, is it the style of the awning? Is it the size of the members? Is it the material? Could you give
Yeah, I mean-
us a little more
I mean-
what needs to be changed?
I guess the first thing for us would be to help us out is that we know that we have a direction as far as the extension of that roof. Are we good at the sidewalk? Are we good at the 5-foot setback?
Right, does it need to be pushed further
Right.
back?
And then we can address the signage issue as well, and the materials.
To me, it seems like there's too much awning.
Okay?
That's just my opinion.
I was just curious, I mean, is this, I mean, I assume, but this is for sun and rain protection, or mostly
Yes.
sun protection?
Right.
Okay. Just one thought. It is a larger canopy than elementals, so I don't know that just picking up elementals and scaling it up is going to be the right solution for this particular awning. With that said, I'm not hugely opposed to the size if you can just, you know, maybe work with the scale a little bit better. And I don't know what exactly that means. Maybe the roof plane isn't just a solid roof plane, although I understand you're trying to protect from the sun.
Sure.
So, if, you know, address the scale a little bit more, I think it would be
Okay.
just some tweaks.
Yeah, I don't have issue with footprint.
Okay.
The extent of the canopy, and I think being able to provide shade for outdoor seating on the south side of a building will allow that space to be more useful and actually activate the streetscape when people are out dining in that area. But I do share the opinion of the scale of it relative to the building, and looking at a way to, like you said, maybe conceal some of the framing, and then looking at those framing members from an engineering standpoint, if there's a way to reduce their size.
Right.
Really overall reduce the impact and the presence that it has relative to the building itself.
Okay.
Any other comments? Any comments from the galley? So do we have a motion for a continuance, please?
I'll move to continue the case until the July 20th meeting so that the applicant can address committee comments.
Second.
That was a Terry Bates motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. We'll see
Thank
you
you.
in July.
All right.
Next item is multiple addresses for Midtown Markers.
Good morning.
Are you presenting today?
Yes.
Okay.
We're very excited to be able to bring this to you today. As you can tell by the number, we've been working on this since the first of the year. So we have, currently there are 3 Midtown Markers that you've been seeing out there for about 10 years. And those did go through the committee that met before this group did, which was Urban Design at the time, a total of 4 originally, and they got approved, but the variance was never obtained, and they didn't get a sign permit. So they've got some additional locations that they want to put in, so they're having to bring back the original locations with those. So we've got 7 new ones and 3 existing ones. The 3 existing ones that you see on your screen now, 2 of those we discussed in our staff report. We have some issues with them. The one on 7th Street somehow got damaged. I have no idea what happened last year. You might have noticed it was kind of leaning. And they fixed it with some L brackets, which isn't really a good permanent solution. It really hasn't, it doesn't look good on it. And so, as you saw in the staff report, we're recommending that, and I'll read that here in a minute, that they come up with a different solution for fixing that. The second issue we have is the one that's up on Northwest 13th, just west of Broadway, and there's some erosion that's around the base of the concrete on it that really needs to be addressed in some fashion with bringing in some dirt or bringing in some river rock or something, and we make that a condition as well. The other one that's on 13th and Classen looks really good. There's no problem with it. It's not leaning or anything, and there's no erosion under it. Then we have the 7 new locations, which are Some are located in the sidewalk area, some are located in, one's located in a planter that you see up here, and then some are located in some grassy areas. Some are located between the buildings and the sidewalk, as you see up here on 8th Street proposed. There's one that's proposed to be located just west of Broadway up here on 10th Street, in an area where at one point there was probably an alley, but it hasn't been there in quite a while. So there's several different ones. Here on the left is one that they're proposing to be located in the sidewalk area, and they're trying to put them strategically to identify you're driving into Midtown, and they're going to look like the ones you've seen for 10 years. We've got one going up on Walker near 13th by the building that just recently was completed, and there's a huge sidewalk area, and so where it's going is not, there's no impact at all to the sidewalk. In reviewing this, there are several different regulations that they're going to have to address before the Board of Adjustment, and that meeting is actually this afternoon. One of those is location and site distance triangle. Some of them are located in the site triangle. They obviously are going to have to get the blessing from Stuart Chai's staff as far as not causing an issue with being located there. We don't perceive that there's going to be an issue. That's a condition as well. There is a restriction on the size for this type of sign, and they're larger than that, so they need a variance from that. And the last one is there's a very oddly worded restriction on, there's a 50-foot radius, and so we actually had to sit down and figure out what the heck does this regulation say. And so on some of the drawings, you see this circle, which is the intersection of the streets and then a 50-foot radius. And so those signs that are located within that 50-foot radius circle, they have to get variance from that location because of one of the regulations for this type of sign. So you will find, bottom line, the staff recommendation is to approve these. Oh, sorry. We also have the letters of no objection, which is required from all adjacent property owners. So they're all on board with this. So staff recommendation is approval with conditions, and they're all listed there. There's 4 of them, which deal with the variances I discussed, as well as the 2 that need some repair work done to them. And then the second motion you all are going to need deals with providing a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment. And as I said, that meeting is this afternoon.
Okay, we don't have to vote separately on the traffic commission.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it won't go to Traffic Commission, it'll just be determined by the city traffic.
Okay. Any questions?
And we have representatives here if you do have questions for them.
I just hope that that we're very careful. It's hard to say from all of the drawings and stuff, but that we're very careful that it doesn't seem like real random locations. Some of the markers that we've done in other areas have appeared to be very random. I'm just saying that. No.
Yeah, that is.
It's just a comment. Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments? Any comments from the galley? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C and D of the staff report with the following conditions. A, the applicant obtains a variance from the Board of Adjustment from the area standard, prohibition of placement in the site triangle, and the minimum 50-foot setback from the edge of the roadway at the street intersection for neighborhood identification signs on the public right-of-way. Condition B, applicant obtains a determination from the city traffic engineer that the proposed placement of the markers within the site triangle will not create a traffic hazard. Condition C, the applicant submits to staff an alternative method of bracing for the marker at 439 Northwest 7th Street. And condition D, the applicant submits to staff a repair solution for the marker at 108 Northwest 13th Street of additional soil river rock, or other appropriate material to be placed around the base.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion for the Board of Adjustment.
I'll move to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for variance from the area standard, the prohibition of placement in the site triangle, and the minimum 50-foot setback from the edge of the roadway at the street intersection for neighborhood identification signs on the public right-of-way.
That was Bates Terrio. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The application has been approved. Anything else on that? No?
On that one?
Okay. The next item is 4 South Robert S. Kerr. Is the applicant present?
Yes, we have a representative from Tyler's
Okay.
Signs here. This is a request for sign to go up for Deep Deuce at the railroad overpass, which will be the same type of letter, same location as found further south with the Bricktown entrances. So it's a smaller sign overall with it, but as you can see in that's the style that they're proposing to be located there, and they're working with DOKC on this. DOKC is the entity that has the lease with the railroad. They will need to get a variance for being located within the right-of-way because of the city street right-of-way that's below this, which is the same process that the last Bricktown sign had to go through. So you will see that staff is recommending approval with the condition that they obtain a variance from the Board of Adjustment from the prohibition of signs in the right-of-way, and then the second motion that you'll need for recommending approval to the Board of Adjustment.
Any comments from the committee? Any comments from the gallery? Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C and D of the staff report, with the condition that A, the applicant obtains a variance from the Board of Adjustment from the prohibition of signs in the right-of-way.
That was a Bates Terrio. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I also move to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for a variance from the prohibition of signs in the right-of-way.
Bates Terrio, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Your application is approved. Okay, next item is 322 Northwest 12th Street.
Good morning. My name is Rand Elliott. I live at 425 Northwest 15th Street. We may not have to show that, but if you have it available. Okay. We have a video if you'd like to see that, and I thought I'd wait till the end of the presentation if you'd like to do it. It's just a couple of minutes long. My colleague Aaron Loud is here to help as well. We're excited to present.
Do we have a staff introduction?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, it needs, it needs no introduction. A new apartment building on 12th Street between Hudson and Harvey. You've probably seen it in the paper. It has a distinctive approach, and in terms of, there were just two very minor issues in the staff report. One was the applicant is still working on the fencing, and fencing, some sort of screening is required at the mechanical unit, so that hasn't been picked up yet. So that has to be a condition. And there is no guideline for sprayed concrete. So that can be considered under, additional materials may be considered, assuming that their quality is the same as the other allowed materials.
Okay. So however you want to do the presentation, if you want to do the video first or talk us through it.
I mean, would you
whichever.
prefer that I go through and kind of set the tone and the
Sure.
context? Okay. we can do that very quickly. It's at 322 Northwest 12th. You can see the red outline. The Zebra Hotel is in the upper left-hand corner. The Foodie site is to the west or the left. North is up. It's a very narrow site, it's 39 feet 8 inches by 140 feet deep, and we're challenged and excited about this particular project. Just some context images. This is looking basically east on 12th Street. Foodies is the little building to the right. You're looking south. The site is just to the left. Will be the next slide. We've tried to enhance the locations of the corners to kind of give you an illustration of the site definition. It's an interesting site because it's not square. It is actually trapezoidal by a foot or two, so it's created an interesting challenge for us. Next. It's become the grounding spot for a lot of couches, and I'm not needing any more couches at this particular time, but we've cleaned this up and trying to avoid that from happening again. Site view from, in essence, the east looking west. The reason this is in here is that we are proposing to do the building in sprayed concrete, which is a cementitious material. And the best example I could come up with that I thought would be recognizable was Le Corbusier's Ronchamp Chapel in the south of France. This building was destroyed in the war, and they rebuilt it out of existing materials and put it back together in a patchwork of brick and masonry and so forth, and then basically sprayed the concrete over it. This is a heavier texture than we would be using, but it's an example. This material's been around since the 1920s. It was really initiated at the beginning of what we would know as modernism today. Gives you a little bit of an idea about the context and the site. On the north end, which is the top side of the slide, it shows the interface with the sidewalk. We're proposing to do a gray granite gravel infill area to define the relationship between what is existing and what is new. On the left and right of the building, because it's only 5 feet in essence, we're proposing to do a light gray gravel there because it will be positioned for trash containers. It's really a service area on both sides of the building. Gives you a little bit of an idea more closely associated with this. In the upper right-hand corner, you can see the idea that we are encroaching over the property line because it's not square, and so we've had to try to, in essence, wedge it into this particular site, and we're over by like a few inches. And so we are in the process of working with the city on that particular element. You can see again the trash containers and air conditioning condensing units and so forth that will be hidden by this fence that we're working on. We want to do a very handsome fence, something that will blend in, and you'll see in the renderings here in a moment, at least an idea of something that's very simple and straightforward. This is the view really looking southwest. You're in the adjacent attorney's office parking lot across the way. The Zebra would be just out of your view to the right. You can just barely see the edge of it. The concept here is called Full Moon, and it's intended to be a very special place for 10 people to live. It's 8 loft units and 2 what we're calling garden flats. And the idea is to create a very interesting experience in terms of a living experience as opposed to maybe just a traditional housing approach. And so there's a 42-foot diameter oculus that basically allows you to have this wonderful view east and west. There is a bridge that goes across it that would allow these 10 people to sort of bond as a group or a tribe, if you will, and they can enjoy sunrise or sunset from that particular position. On the north and south, we have, because these are lofts, we have flats on the bottom, so the window location sort of represents that is what's going on. To the left is the main entrance, trying to make it feel a little grander, if you will. And then the individual elements that are on the building, 2 of them are literally a patio or an outdoor deck, and you're able to walk out and do that. The other 2 are strictly windows allowing natural light into the building. It's the 12th Street entrance. We're basically looking northwest now, the Siebers, as you can see it just through the oculus on the other side of the building. So it's basically symmetrical on the east and west sides. The positions of the openings for the windows changes from north to south to give some variety to the building form. Looking literally due east through the building. And just to highlight, the bridge is made out of steel grating as we're seeing it right now, both the handrails and the structure going across to make that an efficient solution. You're also seeing an LED light that outlines the interior of the oculus. Gives you a sense of the view. You're moving across, basically looking north, if you will. You would jog and go over, and the stairwell and the corridors are to one side. And that's what that doorway is. Gives you an idea of the view. And then on the ground level is the communal courtyard. The idea is that this is actually protected. The wall around the outside is about 7 feet tall, and it allows you to have a private space for the entire building to use. This would be a social space. This would be a place where there would be flowers and vegetables grown, kind of as a communal point of view. A view looking through the oculus from the ground level. This is really kind of giving you an idea of what it looks like when you look to the west. And then at night, it's a really magical place. The lighting, the LED lighting fixture lights up, and it has its very distinctive character and quality to this, and would provide marvelous outdoor lighting for the courtyard below and all of those units looking into this opening. And I might mention the reason why the opening is here is trying to provide windows for the units. What actually is happening is, if you can imagine the solid surface on each side of the oculus, there's one sort of stacked group of units that look, if you will, to the south and to the north. And then the interior views, in order to provide windows there, we're only allowed roughly 20% of the openings there. And so we chose to create something interesting here as opposed to just putting windows on the side of the building. So this occupies that center portion, gives wonderful views and a public space. Some elevations. It's less than what is allowed in this particular area. It's 57 feet tall as opposed to 60, and you can kind of get a sense of it. We're basically, with the lofts areas, we're about 19 feet or so floor to floor, because there are 2 8-foot tall spaces within that plus structure. And then the ground level is really wonderful because it has 12-foot ceilings in it. And so there's a really nice sort of volumetric quality about that. The landscaping is pretty minimal. We don't have much there. We are putting 2 of these lovely flowering trees. It's called a chaste tree, and it's on the north end to frame the building itself. On the upper left is the gray gravel, which you've seen on many occasions. And we had some early thoughts about what the fencing might be, whether it's a slatted thing or a wood thing. We're trying to work that out to make sure we do the right thing there. So that's Full Moon.
Okay. Do you want to do the video?
If you'd like to, I mean, just
Is
take
that okay, guys?
a couple of minutes. Yeah, great. Thank you. Well, may I add one other thing that I'd like to share, and I'm not quite sure about the process and so forth, but I wanted to just share this. Obviously, when we started this project over a year ago, wasn't quite clear what was going to happen on the foodie sites and things like that. And Marva Ellard and others in the neighborhood have been obviously talking about what's going on and trying to do everything possible to make the neighborhood as good as we possibly can. And so a series of things have kind of come together. And we know that it's come before you as far as the foodies presentation and the process and the plan and so forth. I took it upon myself to reach out to Joe Youngman and say, would it be possible to have conversations about sort of creating an opportunity or a solution to tie these sites together more clearly? And he was absolutely in favor of that. He said he'd be happy to do that, but I don't want it to affect the process that we're going through. And I said, that's not the intention at all. So we've had some conversations about the possibility of making the outdoor space that he's going to use for food service to feel more like it comes up the face of the building and out in an effort to try to make these sites more compatible. Right now, the toilet building and one of the bar buildings is up against that part of the site, and he was not at all offended by the conversation and is open to that discussion. We've talked a couple of times about it, and it's my understanding from Lisa and Laura that the idea would be that it could be a revision or something like that that could come before this group. And so I wanted to at least bring that up. It's not intended to be anything heavy-handed or any of that. It's really trying to be a good neighbor for both of us to make this happen together as opposed to two separate kinds of sites. So.
Thank you. Any comments from the committee?
I think it's a very nice looking building, very bold form, and a smart move of basically connecting two separate buildings into one. Glad to hear that you guys are talking to foodies. The one comment I was going to make is about foodies design and how they're addressing the east side of the site with the backs of those buildings, and they had a continuous fence there, that might be an opportunity to reduce the amount of fencing that's needed on this project and potentially, for lack of a better word, upgrade the fencing that is on the project. Right. I think chain link is not the best solution and might pull from kind of the quality of the project as a whole, so that there might be an opportunity there.
Thank you very much. In fact, one of the discussions that we've had with Lisa and Laura as well has been related to, could it be a soft fence? Could it be a dense hedge or something like that? And anything to make it feel more friendly. I mean, we like the idea that there's going to be music and food and all that, that you can overlook from the Oculus. We think that's a cool thing, and we're just trying to pull it together so that it feels like two things are sort of talking to one another. Thank you.
Just a question, on the video rendering, it showed at some point the moon actually being centered on that opening, or the sun. Does it actually ever align quite that way?
We've done some, we've asked the moon gods about that, and it appears that there would be the potential of one time a year when that alignment works. And so it's something that we're investigating and so forth. It's really kind of a fun journey. Pardon me? Is that like a stopped clock?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed it particularly, the Phoenix Public Library has a very particular event, with the solstices, and so this reminded me of that in a way with the rendering, because I thought, is it, intentionally going to line up just this particular way? And as the site just happened to allow that to happen, so I was just curious about it. Otherwise, overall, I just, when I saw this, I was just like, it's so unique. It was, at first I'm like, wow, you have to take a minute to take it in, and I drove the site as well to kind of see how this is going to fit contextually. And I think this is technically Midtown, correct? Okay, so how this would fit, with that language. And I think it's going to be kind of a landmark for Midtown. I mean, especially with foodies on one side, it would assume that maybe that development is going to stay or similar to that. So it's going to be standing in and of itself. It's just there, like plopped on the site. So, I mean, it's certainly a landmark. And yeah, I think there are some other developments actually around that aren't completely foreign to it. There's an apartment building, I believe, to the west that has some materials of similar colors to the white. I don't think that it's sprayed concrete, but at least there's some materials precedence in the area that I think might help, at least give it some context for Midtown. So overall, I think people are going to drive by and be very curious about this building.
I think it's tremendously exciting, and I love to see something that is residential have such great style and design, because we really do not have that very much of that in Central Oklahoma. In residential, whether it's single family or multifamily, it tends to be very just what we have to be utilitarian. And I think it just sets a new benchmark on what people can imagine for residential and for multifamily. I think it's just great.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I really like it. It's very sculptural. My only concern is looking into the future. Our goal is to create a dense inner city, and the regulations will allow the site to the east of that to be at least 3 stories tall. So is there a thought on that? Have you?
Well, we've speculated, of course, and that's all you can do at this particular moment. The property to the east is really the parking for the Wesley Center, and it's busy, it's full all the time, and I can't imagine that they would give up parking for something else, but I suppose that's possible. But we have had that discussion, and we'd like to think that anybody else coming into the neighborhood would assess the decision to do that based on something more than just a land deal, that it would be about continuing to grow a neighborhood in such a way, and this happens to be an opportunity to do something that could be really great for that particular part of the neighborhood, and that there would be a respectful kind of conversation about that or something. That's the way I would feel about it. If there was something like that going on, I might consider an alternative solution that as opposed to just going in and sort of without reference to the surroundings, do something that would seem to sort of destroy something that's a positive thing for the neighborhood.
So neighborhood collaboration seems like it would be absolutely essential, and but it will definitely become a landmark.
Thank you.
It already kind of has.
And to your point, I mean, my conversations with Marva and Joe Youngman and David Wanzer and the things they're doing south with the little movie building and so forth, it's been a really great conversation, and sort of supporting one another and cheering each other on to do something really good that makes it together. And it's a very fulfilling kind of expectation from people when they realize we could do something better together than we can separately.
Okay. Any other comments? Nathaniel has arrived.
Can we start all over? No. I apologize for being so late, but I wanted to voice, I think this is a really, really neat idea, really neat property. Excited to see something like that. I don't live too terribly far from it, and so, yeah, I agree with the comments that it helps kind of envision what residential, could look like, and the diversity of ideas. So,
thank you.
I want to applaud that.
I do have leases here in my pocket if anybody would like to sign up today.
Okay. Well, do we have a motion on this?
Make a motion. I move to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District Zoning Ordinance as referenced in Section C and D of the staff report, with the condition that the applicant submits mechanical equipment screening to staff for approval.
Do we have a second? Second. Okay, that was Faulkner and Bates, correct? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Where do you start?
Well, we're going through this process, obviously, but the idea would be that here within the next probably 3 months, we'd be
Oh, how exciting.
cutting loose and getting underway. We've been working on it for a long time, and so It's been a very interesting thing. I might add one more thing, because this is a unique project, and I had fabulous conversations with Mike Wilson and Jeff Hines, and because this is not a project that you just go out and do, and they've been amazingly helpful. And I would just recommend to anybody that it has projects where they're sort of pushing the envelope a little bit, that they've been very, very helpful in early conversations, because you wouldn't dare do something like this without having conversations, certainly with the fire department as well as for City Code. They were terrific. So thank you, and thanks for your time today.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Okay, next order of business is to elect the officers. And the first officer that we need to get nominations for is the chair, and I would like to propose that Corey Bates would be the chair. Any other nominations?
I would like to second that.
Who's going to make the motions?
I'll make some motions right now. I make a motion that Corey Bates be the chair of the committee.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? You want to take over? Come on.
When is that effective?
The next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, too bad. And then we need to take nominations for the vice chair. I have a suggestion. I suggest Nathaniel Harding. Would you be willing to do that?
Do I need to show up on time next time?
Yes.
Yes, I'd be willing to do that. Thank you.
Any other nominations? No? Okay, so that was in the form of a motion, I guess. And we got a second from Chuck Ainsworth. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great. We have our new chair and vice chair. I will, and so will Gigi. Gigi and I will have to meet once a month on Thursday morning.
When
Yeah, we have
do your terms expire?
today.
So you're not even at the next meeting?
Their terms are expiring, they serve until replaced.
Okay.
And do we have replacements coming?
Not imminently.
I need to talk to Steve Hill about that.
But I was going to say, Betsy, you're the original chair of DDRC. Isn't
Right.
that true? Yeah, if you weren't aware, Betsy's the original chair of the committee. So. I think in the fall.
2035.
Okay, so just to continue the meeting, we have several administrative approvals. Are there any things that we should take note of?
No, we've been busy. I did 3 or 4 of the staff reports, and that's because Laura did several dozen AAs. So we've been busy, as always.
Anything big that we'll notice that is going to come up out of the ground that we weren't aware of?
I hope not.
Okay. Yeah, isn't that exciting? Any additional comments from the planning staff?
We have one case. We tried to get it AA, but it can't be.
Okay. Sounds like you'll have a case in July. I mean, a
Yeah, we were
meeting
trying
in
to
July
push-
for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, for sure in July.
Okay, so the next meeting is June 15th, and the applications are already in. You may not have a meeting. Notice I'm saying you. Okay. Any comments from the committee members?
Congratulations to our new leaders.
I know.
Yes.
Awesome.
They're excited about that. Now, Danielle is moving to, is that right? Yes. So,
So you're not going to have anybody to leave.
So how does that work as far as filling positions?
I didn't know till now it was public. She'll submit a letter of resignation to the mayor, and then we'll work to fill her slot. Please, if you know of people who would be good in It's an architect position, so they have to be a licensed professional. It doesn't, it could be landscape architecture, engineer, or architecture.
But as far as with Betsy and Gigi, does Danielle's slot get filled first? Or how does?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Staff submits nominations, and they get filled in due time by the mayor's office.
Okay.
So we elected Corey Bates and Nathaniel Harding as the new chair and vice chair.
I guess, is there a way to ensure that we always have 7? Whereas if Danielle leaves and we fill...
Danielle's predecessor moved out of state, and it was at least a year before it was filled.
We were without a member.
We were
for-
at 6 people.
Right. I guess I'm wondering if we can avoid that versus saying...
We try.
Okay.
Well, and the quorum is 4.
Right. I just...
Yes, it
I'll stop there. I'm
does
done.
potentially hamper business, and it does affect our ability to get quorum for meetings, absolutely.
And the biggest goal is not to have the applicants go through the hassle of applying and then making arrangements to appear and not be able to have a meeting, and we have had that once.
I guess I'm asking to fill Danielle's spot before filling yours. If that...
Oh, yes, because hers would be, they are...
I will still be here, is
They
that what you're
continue,
saying?
yeah, they continue to serve until reappointed.
Right.
But Danielle physically won't be here.
Right.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Mentally, maybe?
But they will likely be appointed as a batch.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you, guys. It's been a great ride, and we've been doing it for 9 years, I think.
2007 was the
So it's 10 years.
DDRC meeting.
Yikes.
Yeah, I have.
Yep.
Yes, we have. No one else would raise their hand.
Yeah, everybody else didn't want to do it.
Betsy's so superb and no one else would raise
I had a choice?
Okay, we are adjourned.